Hello and welcome to our LinkedIn Live on Microsoft 365 Copilot and the future of system change. My name is Natasha Bradley from Empower M365 and I'm so excited to be joined by John McGee from NHS England. John, can you just introduce yourself, please?
First and foremost, thank you for inviting me along. I watch your LinkedIn Live sessions religiously, so it's good to be invited along to one. John McGee, Head of Collaboration Services at NHS England. And what that means really is that I'm pretty much embedded in that Microsoft 365 national tenant on a day-to-day basis, supporting the system on all their needs, but just watching the evolution of that product and more so now, some of the AI products within that space as well. So really interesting time, really exciting time to be involved in that team.
Perfect, thanks, John. So John, let's start with the 10-year plan. So how has Microsoft 365 been leveraged to support that, especially from the shift from analog to digital?
Yeah, it's we're a small part of NHS.net Connect is a small part of a very big cog. We're a small part in that cog, but we're a really important part of that because obviously our length and breadth in terms of reach is across 1.7 million active accounts today, using that Microsoft 365 product that we secured under the big collaboration licensing deal back in June 23. So if anything, all the conversations that have happened in the space of preparation for the publication of the 10-year plan with colleagues involved in that from across NHS England and probably wider has fed into actually the baseline is already there. We've got that and we can build out from that using the existing collaboration product that we've got nationally at this current time. So it's a really exciting time in terms of what it will do. Obviously, the analog to digital jumps out. We want to make that far more seamless. We want to take away a lot of the fragmentation that's there currently in the system for everybody within NHS. We have a vision within NHS England that it's a commodity service, NHS.net Connect, Microsoft 365. That national platform is a commodity service, and that we should be unifying all under that. And we've got a piece of work currently going on that's doing that. We're removing a lot of those local tenant organisations into that national platform. You do that, then you create the conditions for seamless collaboration across the system, that seamless identity management across the system, seamless security across the system with our CSOC colleagues and our cyber colleagues providing that 24/7. So you have all of those benefits that are there today, but built out across everybody within NHS. And then when you have those challenges in the 10-year plan about analog to digital and about moving certain of care into the communities and prevention, sickness as such, then actually what you are is you're the catalyst for a lot of those conversations. You might not deliver some of those key patient-facing systems, but a lot of the workflows that you deliver really empower those systems to benefit the patient as part of that. So that's how I see our role within that space. It's really exciting in terms of that, and anything we can do to improve that and speed that up through efficiencies, then that's a key thing that's going to come out over the next 12 months and beyond.
Perfect. You mentioned seamlessness and efficiencies, which sort of leads us into the sort of hot topic at the moment of Copilot. Yeah. And it's been introduced across the system. So in your experience looking at the trial, how will Copilot and other AI tools really support the sort of overhaul of the reduction in the operating model? So you're sort of shifting to more of an outcomes based?
Yeah, there's one thing that's true, and you've mentioned the first one already. Everybody is talking about AI. AI is everywhere. But for that to be successful, there's the other part of that, and which is extremely relevant for the NHS, is that there's data everywhere, and there is unstructured data everywhere. And all of that unstructured data drives a lot of the decision-making processes that filter all the way down to those patient-facing services around that. If we can improve that, if we can make them more efficient, if we can challenge ourselves around that with products like Copilot, and we've got just over 34,000 people within general availability now. It's been in pilot for the last year or so, but we're in general availability now for both Copilot and Studio. And we've got 1.7 million, potentially 1.7 million users of Copilot chat today, all embedded with the most up-to-date model, GPT-5, in both those products. If we're looking for those game-changing time efficiencies, if we're looking for those conversations that we can use our resources better with these products supporting that, then Copilot at the national scale is going to be the product that's going to drive that, and it's going to be supported by a lot of the partner work that we've done, and it's going to be supported by a lot of the work that we've done within Microsoft to do that. So really exciting time. And once again, it's not just a knowledge worker type of back-end knowledge worker. Copilot lands in every part of the workforce, whether you be in finance, whether you be in HR, clinical colleagues, whether you're doing direct care or indirect care, whether you're doing that patient administration piece. And we know there's a very thin line between a medical device and a non-medical device, and our clinical safety case currently supports Copilot as a non-medical device, but we accept that patient administration that supports some of those workflows, you can do that using those Copilot products. So really interesting to watch just a lot of that pilot community just evolve the product with lots of use cases coming back.
Talking about clinicians, one of the use cases I heard, and I think it is a northern-based trust, so apologies if I've got this wrong, but it's a clinician who had a 5-year-old boy who kept going to hospital because he wouldn't take his inhaler. So he used Copilot chat to create a story of the little boy's favourite cartoon, which is Winnie the Pooh. So what he did was he uploaded the NHS inhaler leaflet into Copilot and asked it to create a story based on Winnie the Pooh and why it's important to take the inhaler. So the little boy was over the moon. However, he did say, but my gran reads that and she's in Hindu. She speaks Hindu. So the clinician used Copilot to translate it. And I think, that story really warms my heart, really, because it's, not only, as you say, back-end operations, but, frontline clinicians that are using it. And we couldn't create that use case, John. It would have to be that clinician.
Yeah. And I do feel that we're really at the early stages still, even of AI use within a workforce, whether it be public sector, private sector, and that culture of embedding it into everything that you're doing, using it as just that digital assistant, just kind of check my thinking on this, or help me get to a starting point. That's something that will grow through the kind of coming months and years around that. And it'll be interesting to watch around how different people use it on different use cases, as you say.
It is for sure. And I've seen some excellent stats come out from your trial. So, John, what was your highlight from the trial? What sort of stood out to you?
It's I hear things every day. We have a great Copilot cafe. We have a great Copilot community, which we've just rebranded into the NHS.net Connect AI Exchange. So if you haven't signed up, NHS colleagues, look for Viva Engage or your NHS.net AI Exchange and get within that community, because what we're seeing there is that, look, there are going to be these models, these products that are going to change how we, the workforce, are going to do our roles on a day-to-day basis. So really engage with that community around that. And as I say, I'm seeing different use cases on a day-to-day basis, from time savings of individual time savings to teams changing their sort of kind of full workloads and saving weeks and so on around that, from just being smarter with those AI products and what AI can do, and what some of those research agents or some of those analyst agents, or even some of the agents that they've created themselves, can do to support their workloads. What's been some of the really nice things to watch in that community forum is colleagues that are neurodiverse, colleagues that have ADHD, colleagues that have dyslexia, those colleagues that previously, which we all take for granted around creating emails. How do I engage with colleagues, even colleagues that you've got a really good business-friendly relationship? And we take that for granted. But seeing some of the feedback from some of the colleagues where actually it's just helped me structure my conversations a little bit more. It's helped me understand things a little bit more. I think those are the really important use cases that you really can't put an ROI or you can't put a finance cost as part of it if you're trying to tie that with a license cost. But those are the really important wellness workforce benefits that come with using those products. So seeing them on a day-to-day basis has been certainly my highlight throughout the time.
Perfect. I think that's a really good thing to say. It's not all about, financial savings. Obviously, they're important, but there's other things. Like Copilot and Gen AI, yes, they are important. But Copilot and Gen AI can deliver much more than that and give people just a better work-life balance and the ability to do their role more efficiently. So, John, if you had to start all over again and do the Copilot from the beginning, what would you do differently?
We've done fantastic, we approached this, the right way. The key thing I think for me that jumps out, we normally land products into a community. We have 20,000 administrators, technical administrators, and how we would land a change normally into that community is that, look, Microsoft have switched on this thing. It's a toggle to switch it on. And this is what it's going to mean to you as an individual organization. And in that community would be there who act like a support team within their own organization, would shape that and tweak that and then land that back into their organization. The control, a lot of the control in terms of the comms control and the adoption is down to the individual organization in terms of that. And that's been the model that we've used and it's been successful. And we've landed a lot of the products within that kind of Microsoft 365 stack like that. Copilot is different. AI is different in that space. You've got to get your business change right. You've got to get, why are we doing this up front, fully understood by your organizations as part of that. And you've got to understand also why digital transformation has failed previously within a particular organization. And I'm only calling that out before I get to the use cases, because that was a really important point of some of the use cases that are coming out, is that NHS England digital change managers who are embedded into our team, working with Bytes, working across Microsoft, really had those conversations up front, landed it well, landed it to the right community, so that in day one, we knew actually who would be the best people to land this into. It's not a technical change, and we don't want to, as much as we give it to our technical colleagues as well, but we don't want this just to land into your IT department and it just never see the light of day. So we search for clinical colleagues and HR colleagues through those kind of peer-to-peer networks and really sort of kind of searched and called them out around that Copilot piece. In terms of the use cases, and I think that's helped us around a lot of the community and a lot of the use cases that we're getting back. Individually, as I said before, seeing that wellness, seeing that ADHD, seeing those neurodiverse conversations across the thread, I think that's game-changing for anybody, that deals with that on a day-to-day basis. You may have seen Norfolk and Waverley, the video on my thread, and they were once again at the Copilot Cafe again 2 weeks ago, just talking back and giving feedback across multiple different roles, project roles, business support roles, clinical governance roles, and so on and so on, how it's just changed the way that they work on a day-to-day basis around that, and seeing that and then listening to that and then having the final say-so from them to say, look, don't take this from me. That the worst thing to how I operate, both within my team and individually, and how my team operates, would be to lose this Copilot license at the end of that. So that's really rewarding to say that we got it right in some of those early engagement space of that. And also some of the big teams, even within NHS England, around a lot of those areas that look at data and look at documentation and do a lot of that kind of policy guidance support at a national level, and then changing a lot of their workflows that were in the weeds with multiple resources, really labor intensive, really laborious in terms of the day-to-day grind to get to that output. But watching that change and watching that delivery model change and watching the efficiencies and time savings that they've created through that, and then building on that, has been really interesting to watch that. And it's really good to get that feedback. And more now, actually, just as a final point, more and more now, Excel has always been that area where you've got to be a real expert into really make Excel work for you. But more than ever before, a lot of the use cases that are coming in now is, do you know what, this just unlocks Excel for me because I can engage with it in a far better way. If I've got a kind of query in there, I can understand how that query has been created. I can understand how that data has been structured, and I can engage with Copilot within that Excel product in my own way of understanding it to understand how I can shape that, present that. So even more in the last maybe month or two, with a few Excel add-ins, I've seen more and more use cases around that. So as a whole, it's impacting multiple different teams. And even today, we've just opened up our NHS.net Connect AI Exchange community, which was a private community just for the pilot before. We've opened that up now to the full of the NHS. So people can search for that and they can at least engage and they can come to these Copilot sessions. They may not have the full license, but they'll have the Copilot chat license, but at least they can start to engage with some of the training, they can engage with the community, and they can eventually showcase their own use case and good news story as part of that.
Yeah, I think one of the myths is that Gen AI, including Copilot, is a technical tool, and that's far from it. And I was lucky enough to support Microsoft and Bytes at one of your prompting days.
In Hull, wasn't it?
Yeah, and the just the actual outputs that was being brought to the table and presented back in just a few hours was actually incredible. York and Scarborough, they had a phenomenal use case for their agent. Went ahead and built it, and they're hopefully going to get it signed off to use it's business as usual. So, I think those sort of promptathon type things that Bytes and Microsoft were running or are running, they were really beneficial that I got to see firsthand, which was great.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely that.
What is the future then for Copilot across the system? And when I say Copilot, I mean Copilot Chat, 365, and obviously the new sort of topic is Dragon. But what is the sort of, future for the system?
Look, I think the system currently, in terms of NHS.net Connect, its main model is Microsoft 365 Copilot Chat. That's still going to be a big driver in that space. But Microsoft recognize this. Microsoft are public about this. And a lot of organizations working with Microsoft at the last AI event in London, I think it was Vodafone and a few others, were echoing the exact same sort of now conversation, is that, look, it may not meet every use case around that. And we can see probably a future. And I'm speaking now as myself, not as NHS England. I can see a future where organizations will be using different models for different use cases around that. I think there'll be a richness within that Copilot product now with GPT-5. But as that evolves as well, as Anthropic evolves and Claude and some of the integration with that, as OpenAI evolves as a product, I think there'll be more models into that digital workforce market that people have to assess and individual organizations will have to assess. As long as we have that wrapped around security that comes with that, as long as we have the same guardrails in place that we do with Copilot, then it'll be something that we will have to engage with and assess as part of that. But certainly from a Copilot point of view, we see us really driving the Copilot chat conversation more and more into individual organizations. That product's going to get richer and richer, and it's going to be more context aware of a lot of the products within that Office stack. And I think that will help those organizations that are making that decision between, right, okay, if I've got a pot of money and I'm going to use it for that AI product, who are those who's that niche community within an organization that we're going to get maximum benefit from. Agents is going to come along and drive that. It's going to be a lot of those developers, low-code developers, that are going to really rework and change all those workflows that are there today using agents around that. But there's a day-to-day knowledge management, within an organization, patient administration within an organization, that would really benefit from a layer of Copilot, whether it be Copilot chat or whether it be the full product. And I think we'll support that conversation going forward with lots more personas, lots more use cases, lots more guidance to help organizations make that decision around what's the best fit for them in that space. But I can see a world where in 12 months, and actually 12 months is a long time in AI, as you know, is that, the models are, challenging even that kind of Microsoft position in that space. And it shouldn't do, but it'll come down to the efficiency of model. It'll come down to how that model is built and where the data sits and some security. But part of that will also come down to cost. And that is going to be feasibly, and cost effective for any organization who uses these models going forward. So it's a really interesting time just to watch that evolve, I think.
Yeah, no, very, very interesting space to be in. So John, we're coming to the end, but I'd like to ask one more question, if that's okay. Mm-hmm. What would be your top 3 tips to trusts who haven't yet embraced Copilot?
Oh, that's a good one. That's a really good one. So, even in the Copilot world, I've seen the positive and I've seen the negative out there. Even 2 weeks ago, there was a bit of a news story doing the rounds from one of the government departments around that. And then you've seen our output of 43 minutes per day and the time savings and so on. I think looking at it, reading between the lines, but also reading between the lines of some other private sector organizations, people approach this as a technical change and they don't get the buy-in, and they don't get the buy-in at the right level. They don't approach it as a business change. And that's really important around that. You've got to have a team that understands business change management, understands how that lands in your organization, understands how they can drive those stakeholder management conversations, which we were lucky that we could call upon, and we have that, and they continue to support that. But that's certainly number one. You've got to be able to see this as a business change. You've got to get buy-in, not just from the top, and then they pass it on, and that ownership and that enthusiasm is lost. It's got to be fully bought in across each one of those different communities that are going to be involved in the rollout of this particular product. Partners. We couldn't have done it without partners in that space. The size and scale that we've got, even on the pilot, our pilot was to 31,000 licenses. We're really still at the start of that journey. As much as it's GA now, we're really at the second of now in that innovation curve. We're really at the start of that second early adopter piece. The hard work starts now around getting everybody else in the NHS bought into our enthusiasm around this particular product. And we can only do that through constant training, communities, partner support around that. So we found that partners are key to a lot of the work that we do, whether it be through Bytes, whether it be through Accenture, whether it be through Microsoft directly, and Microsoft engaging other partners to work on our behalf in that space. And we've got a number of leverages or levers, and they've got a number of levers that they can pull on that can make that far, far easier for individual organizations working with those partners that are in that space. But partners to deliver that training piece ongoing around that. And then I'd say maybe communities. It's got to be communities that drive us. It's got to be, it can't be the NHS.net Connect team controlling the kind of rollout of that. It's got to be the communities that understand their own use cases, that understand their daily challenges, that understand maybe some of the concerns that they've got, because we're still having that conversation on a day-to-day basis around some of the concerns around AI use within the NHS. And they've got to go at their own speed in that space, and you've got to help them get, as part of that speed. But those communities, like a National Viva Engaged community, like Copilot cafes, as you see, like the Promptathon events in terms of that community and training piece, really important, because a lot of people I spoke to came along to that not fully understanding the potential of it, but they certainly left understanding the potential once it had been through that conversation with Bytes and Microsoft and people like yourself. And then they've tested that with a use case that's really pertinent to them, and then showcased that use case, and then had a bit of a Q&A piece around, well, yeah, but what about this? And what's the challenge there? Then they left knowing, well, actually, I'm going to take that back in with an added enthusiasm back into my organization and drive that. And I want to be onto that sort of product as quickly as possible. So I think those are the three areas that I was sort of call out and made us successful in that first pitch of the innovation curve. But it's continuous, it's ongoing in that space.
Perfect. Thanks, John. John, thank you ever so much for joining me today. It's been great to chat to you. Thanks everyone for listening. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. But have a good day, and thank you very much for listening. Thanks, John.
Thank you, Natasha. Good to see you. Thank you.